Welcome to this explainer. If you've been watching the news lately, you probably think the script for World War III is already written. But today, we're doing something a bit different. We're pivoting away from those obvious giants and diving straight into the actual data to uncover the volatile, unseen flashpoints that could ignite a global conflict today. Right now, literally everyone is intensely focused on Moscow and Beijing, right? Every analyst and news channel points to them as the primary architects of global instability. But what if we're all looking the wrong way? The source material we're examining today suggests the real danger is actually hiding in plain sight. It's not the superpowers making a calculated move that should keep us up at night. It's the smaller, deeply entangled nations sitting at the absolute crossroads of global alliances. To really grasp the urgency here, just look at the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. As of 2026, their famous Doomsday Clock sits at exactly 89 seconds to midnight. 89 seconds? That is less time than it takes to microwave a bag of popcorn. It marks the absolute closest we have ever been to global catastrophe, and it's a stark, quantitative measure of the overlapping crises our world is currently navigating. And, it's not just the scientists hitting the panic button. The public feels it too. A recent YouGov poll shows that 53% of British respondents actually believe a third world war is likely within the next 5 to 10 years. Over half the population feels the ground shifting right beneath us. So this isn't just fringe paranoia, it is a very mainstream concern. This isn't just gut feeling either. Seriously respected institutions are validating this fear. Organizations like the Rand Corporation and Chatham House put the probability of a global conflict at a terrifying 20 to 30%, all based on ongoing geopolitical events. When leading defense think tanks tell you there's basically a 1 in 4 or nearly 1 in 3 chance of global war, you really have to ask yourself, what exactly is driving that math? Well, the math behind those probabilities is terrifyingly simple. As of 2026, the world has over 56 active armed conflicts happening simultaneously. 56! That's the highest number we've seen since World War II. From the Russia-Ukraine war to civil wars in Sudan, Myanmar, and the DRC, the global system is just under immense, fragmented stress. The tinder is bone dry, and we've got 56 active fires burning right next to it. Section 1, Pakistan and the Nuclear Edge. To understand why Pakistan is on this list, we just have to look at recent history. Things have been at an absolute boiling point since the April 2025 Pahalgam terrorist attack in Kashmir, which tragically killed 26 civilians. That directly sparked India's Operation Sindoor, a massive strike using Rafale jets and precision drones. Pakistan fired back, claiming they downed Indian aircraft with Chinese-supplied J-10 fighters. Fast forward to March 2026, and those post-Operation Sindoor tensions have massively elevated the global risk. Now, here is what makes this specific border dispute so incredibly dangerous. It's Pakistan's first-use nuclear policy. Basically, this means they are entirely willing to launch a nuclear strike first, just to stop a large conventional Indian assault. They are currently the only major nuclear power with a doctrine expressly set up to strike first like this. It literally turns a standard regional clash into an existential global threat in a matter of minutes. Just watch how fast this chain reaction happens. A localized exchange between Pakistan and India absolutely does not stay local. Think about the alliances. Pakistan is backed by China. India is supported by both the US and Russia simultaneously. If this goes nuclear, it instantly, and I mean instantly, drags in China, the US, and Russia. This is exactly how a regional border dispute mathematically triggers a true world war. Section 2, North Korea, the wildcard. For 2026, the Council on Foreign Relations ranks North Korea as a Tier 1 conflict risk. That's their highest level of concern. Why? Well, for starters, they've officially declared themselves an irreversible nuclear state. Plus, we've seen them surprisingly deploy thousands of troops and weapons to fight in Ukraine, forging a really deep alliance with Moscow. And if that wasn't enough, they just recently test-fired their new Hyon-class destroyer, a massive 5,000-ton warship that can actually launch nuclear ballistic missiles. So here's the domino effect that keeps strategists up at night. Step 1, Kim Jong-un strikes South Korea. Why would he do that? To deliberately pull American military attention entirely away from Taiwan. Step 2, U.S. mutual defense treaties immediately activate, dragging America straight into the Korean peninsula. Step 3, this completely forces China's hand. And then step 4, with the U.S. distracted, the window for a Taiwan invasion swings wide open, sparking a full-blown Pacific War. It is a calculated strategy to just overwhelm U.S. military capacity. Section 3, Turkey and the NATO fracture. Now let's talk about Turkey, because they wield incredible geographic and military leverage. They sit squarely right between Europe and the Middle East, and they completely command the Bosphorus Strait. That is literally the only naval passage between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, and on top of that massive geographic choke point, they hold the second largest army in the entire NATO alliance. But here's where the real friction lies. Recently, President Erdogan has hinted at direct military intervention against Israel, which sets up an unprecedented paradox. As defense analyst at Mira Safety pointed out, this would create a fundamentally impossible treaty geometry for NATO. Let's actually break down what that impossible geometry looks like. Say Turkey attacks Israel. Suddenly, you have a NATO member attacking a key U.S. ally. NATO's Article 5 Mutual Defense Clause becomes completely structurally incoherent. I mean, you can't defend both the NATO member attacking and the U.S. ally being attacked, right? The alliance fractures from within. It forces an impossible choice for America, and while the West is paralyzed trying to figure it out, Russia is perfectly positioned to exploit the overnight collapse of European security. Section 4. The Miscalculation Cascade. During the Iran-Israel military confrontation back in early 2026, we saw exactly how these underlying tensions push the world right to the edge, long before any formal declarations of war are even drafted. Now, while a ceasefire is currently holding over there, military strategists literally describe those March events as the precipice of World War III and the final catalyst. It proves that the triggers are already loaded. It really just takes one small spark to set the whole thing off. And, this overarching theme connects all the scenarios we're looking at today. Whether it's Pakistan's first-use nuclear doctrine, North Korea's mutual defense treaties, or Turkey's wild NATO Article 5 paradox, the core mechanisms are identical. These automated, incredibly rigid defense treaties basically guarantee that a regional miscalculation will physically outpace any attempted diplomatic de-escalation. It instantly drags the major superpowers into the fray before anyone can even hit the brakes. Defense experts are warning us that the next global war won't be some sudden, deliberate choice where half the world just wakes up and decides to split into two camps. No, it'll be a cascade of interconnected military obligations that just spiral out of control. We're edging toward a conflict driven by shared military capabilities and intelligence, where isolated events simply don't exist anymore. Ultimately, what you should take away from this explainer is this. The most devastating wars in history aren't usually started by the most powerful nations pushing a big red button. They are started by desperate, unstable nations taking a localized risk that the global system just cannot absorb. So as we wrap up here, looking at the data, the treaties, and the escalating tensions, I want to leave you with one thought to explore. Which spark lands first?